Can the essence of art be easily understood? If so, is interpretation of said art set in stone, with a single core truth from the mind of the artist? Hello my YouTube frogs, these are the big questions that have been floating through my mind recently after rewatching Angel's Egg, an anime classic of avant-garde cinema from the year 1985. Through this video, we will be exploring why the film has an enduring legacy spanning over 40 years of relevance through its thematic meaning. But first, some important context on the film. Angel's Egg is a mystifying, dreamlike experience, unparalleled in the medium of animation. An ever-questioning piece, produced from the minds of brilliant Japanese creatives, director Mamoru Oshii of Ghost in the Shell acclaim, and the conceptual art director Yoshitaka Amano, known for his unique surrealist art style, illustrating for iconic series such as the original Final Fantasy games. With these accomplished creators fronting the project, it's unsurprising that the film was able to evoke something within the viewer. But what exactly is it? Having an atypical narrative structure with nearly zero dialogue, its ephemeral philosophy is certainly difficult to grasp, as it leaves its narrative journey and reflections completely open-ended. And even after decades, there are still countless interpretations, searching for definite meaning. However, I find the answer on the contrary rather simple in fact to answer. Now, I won't beat around the bush here. Without further ado, the real meaning of Angel's Egg is up to you, the viewer. Rather anticlimactic? In my opinion, not at all. This is what actually makes Angel's Egg such a special film. You as a unique individual person derive and create meaningfulness yourself. The film doesn't have one set story, value system, or life takeaway. Instead, the film provides the viewer with set narrative themes, symbolism, and vague artistic grandness, which can then be used to craft highly personal meaning. This is quite rare, as creative media typically has an intended takeaway, influenced by biases and opinions of the creator. This isn't to detract from other media, as certainly many brilliant worlds and ideas have been birthed from highly opinionated creators. Still, this unique creative approach for Angel's Egg produces a one-of-a-kind piece that allows for the viewer to find their own answer among the plethora of symbolic detail, held meaningful to a steady thematic identity. With the meaning of the film outlined, there are now two distinct lenses I will use to further provide evidence to support this as the intended meaning for Angel's Egg, and how viewers can derive meaning from the film. The first is an email exchange interview between the creator Mamoru Oshii and journalists of RogerEbert.com. When asked the question on screen, he responds with, "My goal was to convey the concept through the film while minimizing the focus on the characters and the story. The characters, as well as the story itself, are merely symbols, materials for visualizing metaphors. When I made this film, I believed it was possible to express that idea through cinema." What we can take from his response here is that it was indeed his creative intent to minimize having clearly defined characters and story, so they could properly serve as vague metaphors that allow for open interpretation of the film's core. This personal film experience provided to the viewer is what makes Angel's Egg a compelling piece. He further explains this in the following question as to why he chose this particular creative approach for Angel's Egg. He answers, "A movie is an imperfect form of expression in many ways, and I think that's its greatest charm. I feel a film truly fulfills its purpose only when it's being discussed and talked about." What he states here is that regardless of the artist's intent when creating a piece, it will always be as flawed in creation and meaning as the human artist who made it. For Angel's Egg, Oshii's interpretation or perspective of what the film means does not matter to the audience, as it will never be communicated entirely, and he knows this. Instead, he finds this to be the true beauty of film, as each viewer can derive an exclusively meaningful value from an art piece, which can then be discussed and shared with others. This philosophy Oshii holds is reflected wholly in the artistic direction of Angel's Egg, being rich in detail that makes for meaningful conversation, as those who watch the film will most certainly interpret the symbols and themes in vastly different ways. This individualistic journey and then shared process is the true meaning behind Angel's Egg, at least according to Oshii. With that being said, I believe it important to address that due to Angel's Egg's unusual narrative structure, it is easy to become lost while watching the film, which can then lead to an experience of missing valuable themes and symbols. This is of course a valid takeaway too from the film, as avant-garde storytelling is on the niche for a reason. but I find a new challenge has emerged in the current year that was not present when the film first released in 1985. Back then, if you did not understand the film but found it enjoyable, you would derive meaning through reflection later, and perhaps discussing your understanding with others. But after decades of technological advancements since, the internet can simply tell you what the movie is supposedly about, totally removing the deliberate nuance. This, in my view, deprives certain viewers of understanding the true meaning of the film. To importantly clarify, I first understand the irony of this being a video telling you what the meaning of the film is, but that is why I have personally refrained from making comments specifically on how I interpret the themes, symbolism, or anything else from the film, and instead wish for this video to be a forum for that intended discussion as opposed to the former. And secondly, I want to make it clear that I am not criticizing anyone who has either made reviews for the film or shared their perspectives publicly, as it is 100% their prerogative to do so. I simply wish to warn against certain viewers misusing, in my humble opinion, these reviews to find definite meaning of Angel's Egg, that then reshapes what the viewer watched in retrospect and unfortunately misses their own meaning from the film. Now for the second lens of analysis, I also want to provide a different perspective on Angel's Egg's creative direction, but that also aligns with the overall conclusion of the film being about individualistic interpretation. So I'll set a hypothetical scenario here to introduce this idea. Imagine you are in English class studying a designated text by the school. The text is one of the classics. Well, why are you studying it? Typically, English teachers designate texts based on their cultural, historical, social, and/or literary value, and often this context is established through understanding the author and their life circumstances. However, while it can be argued that there is indeed value in this learning, many students during this process are likely to mentally disengage from the material. Well, why is that? I believe it is because they are limited in personal expression during analysis, as they have to reply to set context surrounding the author, which is further why Angel's Egg is a thoroughly engaging piece, due to context being irrelevant and the individual deriving their own meaning. This concept is explored in an influential essay by Roland Barthes titled The Death of the Author. The essay argues against the long-standing traditional practice of analysing literature through studying the author's life and their intentions for the narrative, instead shifting focus onto the reader's own experiences and the work living beyond an author. A well-known quote synthesizes this point quite effectively. The birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author. I find this quote and the whole work quite inspiring as someone who is a lover of various art forms, and someone who enjoys analysing them further, as it places much of the authority of interpretation in your own hands. A creator cannot force you into believing something. Masters of the craft certainly are convincing, but still, when you watch a film, read a book, or view any other art form, you get to decide what to come away from the experience with. And so certainly, Angel's Egg embodies this philosophy in theme by balancing highly ambiguous narrative and characters orbiting around rich themes and visual settings to assist the viewer in having a profound hour of introspection, engaging with the core elements of storytelling in a personally meaningful manner. The two lenses I've provided contradict each other in places, but I wish to offer both of these insights as different ways to demonstrate Angel's Egg's brilliance. The two lenses I've provided contradict each other in places, but I wish to offer both of these insights as slightly differing ways to understand the unique brilliance of the creative philosophy behind Angel's Egg. And truly, the experience this film offers is special and meaningful every single time I watch it. Hopefully I've been able to effectively convey this to you as well, rather than telling you what occurs in the film or what the titular egg and world means to me. I wish for everyone who has watched this video to experience the film for themselves. Even if it sounds unusual compared to what you typically watch, give it a shot and reflect upon the film to find your own wonderfully brilliant and unique perspective, and I'm very curious. What does the film mean to you? What does this video mean to you? Does my thesis make any sense? I hope you'll drop some of your thoughts in the comments below, as I'd love to read them and discuss the film. To ultimately conclude though, the meaning of Angel's Egg is the artistic expression of a personal journey. But this is, of course, just what the film means to me. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed watching my first ever video. I had a blast writing and creating it, so hopefully just some of my passion shines through. I just have two final comments I'd like to quickly say before the video ends. One, the film is not on streaming to my knowledge, so I'll leave a link in the description below to the brand new 4K/Blu-ray release, alongside the two works I referenced in this video. Point number 2 is just some info on this channel. If you've watched this far, you might be interested in my plans for the future. So I'd like to say that I plan on making more videos. I'm unsure on the frequency of uploads, but I'll continue to provide insightful analysis of any animations and graphic novels primarily that catch my interest and I think should be talked about more. But once again, thank you so very much for watching.